We appear to be live.
Are we?
I don't know. Vi, can
Nope.
you? We're not live. Do you?
I feel alive. Well, you're not live.
Not alive. Live.
Just live.
There you go.
So, can you turn audio on quickly and make sure that you can hear us?
I can't hear you yet.
You can't hear us yet. Still no? Do you have your laptop muted?
Nope.
Okay. Does Jason? Can anybody hear us?
I can hear you.
If you can hear us, text and let us know that you can hear us. Message, because otherwise we're just talking without voice.
Do you want me to give them your number?
They say
So
that
they
they
can
can
text?
hear us.
They can hear us. Okay, fantastic. Well, we can't hear us. I mean,
Weird.
we can hear us in studio, but we can't hear us through our own computers. So that's fantastic. Well, thank you guys for joining us for our second self-hosted Q&A. This one is topicked on biomes.
Yeah.
Biomes and related things. Sorry for the delay. We were actually having technical difficulties with our audio system, as you can tell. But those at least seem to be resolved for the time being. So thank you guys again for joining us. Quick introduction for those of you who have not seen one of our Q&As before. I am Jeremy Caspian Walsh, owner and creative director of Soulbound Studios, working on the innovative new MMO Chronicles of Elyria. And I have with me today two guests. I have on my right Miguel. Miguel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Miguel Sozo Sierra. I'm the technical designer and world builder at Chronicles of Elyria. The amazing MMO, which is going to break all kinds of ground.
There you go.
Yeah.
I felt that.
Yeah.
On my left is Eddie.
I am Eddie Heat 1996 Smith. I am the lead concept artist and art director for the game.
So we wanted to have you guys join us today so that we can answer your guys' questions about biomes and related topics. Also, real quick before I forget, I just wanted to point out here that I have my swag with me here. Somebody sent us the Holy Church of Melanism. So thank you guys for providing me a cup in which to drink while doing this Q&A. And we tried very hard not to let this end up in my lap this time, which is good. So there. So we asked you guys to go ahead and post questions on Reddit so that we would know what your concerns were, what kind of questions and things you had. And as with before, we have our, I would say, lovely assistant, but she's our producer. So beyond lovely assistant, she's our fabulous producer, is here at present. She will be relaying to us the questions that you guys ask, as well as her. Our UX designer, Jason Death Welter, is also on hand. Sheila, our community manager, should also be present to help answer any questions you guys have. And yeah, shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Real quick, they are saying that the audio is pretty quiet.
Is it?
Pretty quiet. Let's
So I don't
turn
know
the
if
volume up.
there's
Project yourself.
something we can
Project
We can also
ourselves.
do that.
We can move it forward. Can you go closer?
Did you up it more? Yeah, I did.
Is it in the frame now?
No. Yeah, it's in the shot now.
Is there volume up? So still having audio problems. Fantastic.
If you guys
It's
need
negative
someone to be loud, I've got you guys covered.
Yeah, if you guys project the old lady in the back.
Project.
Yeah, it's in
All
the
right.
shot, yeah. Put it a little lower. Yeah, a little more.
I think they're saying that
Little
you
more?
sound
A little
fine.
more.
That's what I thought.
Really? Because
I
I think
think this
Eddie was louder than
That
I think
was-
Miguel was. But
It's,
There we go.
you know,
All right.
it has to do with the,
Up it to it says negative 6 out of 12. So.
All right.
Oscillations
Well,
in my vocal cords.
let us press on.
let us press on. We will be louder, and actually, if you guys can, let us know if our increased voices is enough or if it's still too quiet. If it is too quiet, then we'll readdress the technical issues. But in the meantime, let's carry on.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, first set of questions coming in. I'm gonna have Vi read them, and then we will repeat.
Yeah,
All
we
right. Yes. So I'm gonna actually skip to question 3.
Okay.
Because it's a really good introduction question. From Morbus, could you give a brief overview of the biomes that will be in the game upon release?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the question repeated is, can we give a brief overview of the biomes that will be available upon release? Oh, look at that. Miguel has his sheet with him, so he is ready. I will hand this over to Miguel and let him tell you about the biomes.
So, starting in no particular order, but with tundras, right? We're gonna have polar deserts,
Project.
tundras. I think I'm loud enough.
All right.
Tundras, graminoid tundras, alpine tundras.
You know, you don't have to read them all. You can just give them an overview of just say there's 20 of them, and then give your favorites.
All right. The general types, rather than going into all the details, there's steppes, there's forests, there's tundras, there's deserts, there's wetlands, and the type of wetlands and deserts and tundras and forests are going to vary based on altitude, based on latitude, and
Humidity.
yeah,
Morbus would like you to read them all.
Woody.
We would. All right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So
We're
then,
gonna do them all.
polar desert, tundra, graminoid tundras, alpine tundras, taigas, alpine forests, coniferous forests, deciduous forests, evergreen forests, grassland steppes, montane steppes, shrub steppes, arid deserts, semi-arid deserts, grass and shrub savanna, woodland savanna, tree and shrub savanna, tropical wetland, freshwater, swamp wetland, freshwater, tropical rainforest, mangrove, saltwater. Mangrove is a type of wetland. And that is,
There you go. That is all of them.
that is, yeah.
So now that I'm sure there's going to be a follow-up question on this, but why don't you just take a moment and explain why we have so many different biomes? Because that sounds like a lot. Like if I were somebody who didn't know why, I would ask, why are there so many biomes, especially if they sound so similar to people?
All right. So there are several reasons. But one is that the biomes all have unique parameters that lend to things such as materials. They lend to things such as tribes. And they lend to the visual interests, which Eddie can talk about, of the world itself. Because the variety should be not just in the environments, but also in the things inside the environments, which lends itself to varied gameplay. You know, one resource might be found in one place, and that isn't found somewhere else. And so, having mechanics developed around that to take advantage of that, and to have diversity amongst the players, you know, different motivations for being in one place versus another, and being able to take advantage of your surroundings. Those are all reasons why we would have multiple.
So-
biomes.
It also
Yeah.
increases the visual scope of the game because I've often found in games that are monochromatic or where there's a singular environment, it has a short lifespan when it comes to the fun factor and playability. Yeah, so you get tired of it pretty quickly versus a game that has multiple different environments and different looks and feels as to that throw at the player and allow you to experience the game in different ways instead of the same way over and over again.
Yeah, so one of the things Miguel was talking about is what we define as exclusion zones, exclusion things. One of the ways in which we build this world is by identifying all the different biome life that can exist, whether it's flora or fauna, and then figuring out where it can and cannot live. And so one of the main reasons why we have a lot of the biomes is just to kind of allow us to filter with a high degree of fidelity where you will and will not find animals and plants of various different types. And then as Eddie was saying is having so many different biomes also means that as you're traveling throughout the world, which is a big world, remember we're talking, 128 kilometers across in one direction, which is no small area, that as you're traveling, you're going to see a lot of visual differences, even subtle things like certain types of trees will stop being popular in an area and another type of tree will become popular, and the animals are going to adjust accordingly. So it's about visual differences as well as making sure that diversity. It's all about diversity.
Yeah.
Diversity. Cool. Next question.
Great. The next one is from Imshada and would like to know how large are individual biomes expected to be in relation to the political divisions of Elyria? Will counties, duchies, etc. mostly fall along natural biome borders, or might a county contain 2 to 3 distinct biomes in certain areas?
So, duchies, kingdoms, they're generally going to fall around the edges of biomes, and specifically watersheds, right, where you would find places of inhabitants in real life, right? So water source is usually one of the biggest determinants as to whether or not you can live there. You're not going to find a county that has multiple biomes, and for the most part, duchies probably are going to exist within 1, maybe 2 biomes. It depends on whether or not they're within transition zones or not, and how many transition zones are existing in whatever the duchy is. But for the most part, they can be rather big. Biomes can be potentially, half a continent, there's no solid number, but they can be very big. But you're not going to find, like I said, you're not going to find counties within multiple biomes. But you may find duchies or kingdoms that exist within a single biome.
Yeah, it's important to note the way that we do the world generation is it's a multiple layer system. So, we generate the individual continents, and then we based on the continents, we take into account things like weather patterns and elevation and humidity from that. And then ultimately we generate kind of what you would consider the economic or kingdom boundaries at the end after the entire terrain is generated. And so counties will tend to divide along watersheds and water boundaries. Duchies will tend to be along boundaries of biomes themselves, and then kingdoms can actually have multiple biomes that exist within them. That's not to say you're never, ever, ever going to find a county that has multiple biomes within them, but they'll tend to be transition biomes or things that kind of give a similar feel. I mean, a good example is Titan Steppe, which is kind of, would you say it's taiga-based as well as steppe-based? Because there's really like the northern border of it is kind of like the edge of one biome into the next.
It's certainly a coniferous forest.
Mm-hmm.
I might not call it a taiga. It's not that far north, but it's
Okay.
it's a coniferous forest, probably an alpine forest actually.
Okay.
An alpine forest with steppe, right?
Yeah, so usually you'll find those along the borders. Ultimately, boundaries between biomes or between regions like that is actually one of the biggest things that we use to divide it's a natural boundary for domains, right? It's a natural boundary for counties, duchies, and kingdoms. So we tend to use those as our boundaries.
Right.
Forests as well, mountain ranges.
Right. It's the idea of seclusion of resources, right? If I have a kingdom, it's like, I want all the wood in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and say that, it's mine.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right.
Next question.
All right. The next question is from Adam Burfoot.
Awesome. King Adam. King
Fantastic.
Evelake Rain.
Yes.
Who's now owns 2 kingdoms.
He's got a big kingdom.
He does have a big kingdom.
Well,
A lot of biomes.
He would like to know, to what extent can you affect a biome? For example, can you fail to apply dryland farming methods in a plains biome and cause severe dust storms? Can you redirect streams, creeks, rivers to irrigate areas of desert and make it usable for farming, etc.?
So, while I'm not going to answer any specifics as to the techniques you can use, yes, you can alter a biome over time. I mean, one example would be deforestation versus, afforestation. You could plant trees also, and that will affect the biome. If you have a tree montane, like a tree steppe, right? Or a tree savanna, for example, and you cut down all the trees, it's no longer a tree savanna. It's probably at that point a grass savanna, and so to that extent, yeah, you can.
There was a specific question there around rivers and irrigations. Those are the ones we're not going to talk on.
Yeah.
Because we're still working on those systems. Water is a complex thing.
It is. It is.
Next question.
Next question.
All right, from Ithakari. Will being in certain biomes affect how food degrades over time? As in, will a hot, humid biome rot meat quicker than a cold/snow biome?
Absolutely, yes. It's part of the problem space that the biomes represent, right? Storage of food, that's a big one, and it's a problem that people have to find ways to overcome, and so that problem presents itself as gameplay, right? How do I ensure that my food lasts long enough for me to make it through the winter? Or, how do I ensure that my food doesn't rot?
Or carry a smell that attracts dangerous animals.
Oh, yeah.
That's true too.
Good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
That's a yes.
From Leva98989. The architecture in different biomes. Will we see big sandstone archways and large fountains in the warmer climates, and smaller windows and more wooden pointy buildings in colder climates?
Let
So
Eddie-
snow falls off, that kind of thing.
I'll let Eddie
Yeah.
talk about that.
Okay. Give me that question again. It was a little long.
Architecture.
Architecture
Oh, okay.
per biome, like seeing sandstone archways and fountains in warmer climates. Or
How much will the biome affect the architecture,
Yeah.
I think?
The biome affects the architecture a great deal because of the materials used to build the buildings and spaces will be gathered from that biome. Also, the overall style and look of the architecture will depend upon the culture of the tribes that live there that are building the spaces. So, one will dictate the other. The biome determines everything.
One of the things that we do heavily when trying to work out the architecture in a region, and Miguel actually spent a lot of time working with Eddie on this as well as doing research, is what things historically drive the architecture in a region, and a lot of it has to do with the resources that are available, and a lot of it's cultural too. Their fears and aspirations, whether or not the environment around is conducive, not only from a resource standpoint, like whether or not there's wood versus clay, but also what your level of protection is from wind, from other elements, from predators and things like that. Like those all work to dictate the architecture that we use, the amount of lighting, where you are in terms of latitude, the humidity. Those things all play a role, and those have both a mechanical design element to it as well as a visual element.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Actually, I have a quick follow-up about the biomes and boundaries.
Follow up to
Question from
biomes
before.
and boundaries. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
If boundaries are created through the use of natural boundaries like forests, would adding to the forest area change the boundary of a territory?
So they're talking about legal boundaries versus
Yeah,
biome
no,
boundaries.
I get it. It would not. So that there's a difference between at-world generation. Basically, when people get into exposition, or really, even during settlement selection, what they're picking from is like which of the boundaries for the domains they want. So which county they want, which duchy they want, which kingdom they want, which settlements they want, things like that. Those are going to be based on boundaries that are established as a result of kind of the natural boundaries, the watersheds, the mountains, the forests, and things like that. But ultimately, once players pick the settlement that they want, then they're going to be fast-forwarding time. I mean, they're going to be playing forward. So creating new forest area doesn't necessarily automatically mean that your county now extends to where that forest boundary was. What it does do, though, is it creates a nice shade of cover between your side of the county and the county next to you. So if you're looking to encroach into a neighboring county and you don't want anybody to know about it, then planting trees there is certainly one strategy.
It's a metagame.
Yeah.
It is.
It's like, oh my god, how did that forest get there?
Right.
I had no idea.
That's crazy.
Cool. Next question. Will animals migrate between biomes during the changing seasons? We've seen herds of animals, but haven't heard much about their patterns.
Yes, they will. Not all of them, but the animals that do migrate will. Depends on whether or not they're endemic to an area and whether or not they're capable of adjusting to varying temperatures internally, and it's just going to depend on the animal. But yes, they will migrate.
So, also, hey, by what time is it?
It's 4:42.
So the other thing is we got started a little bit late, and I know Eddie has to get back to work. He's got some things he wants to do. So I actually wanted to ask Eddie before he has to step away. Is there any other things that you wanted to talk about in terms of biomes and artistic style, resources, architecture, how you and Miguel were working on developing like the settlements, like the objects in the settlements and things like that? Really, anything you want to talk to them about. We'll get back to the Q&A, but I know that I did a precursor look over it, and there wasn't as much stuff in there that Eddie could speak to since there was a lot of questions about design, but I wanted to give him an opportunity to share with you some of the stuff that he's interested in sharing with you about this topic.
Well, the design definitely determines how the biomes and everything is laid out, but I want the visual style of the biomes and everything that goes in it to tell a story. I mean, the game's called Chronicles of Elyria, and anytime you walk through an environment, it's going to have its own chronology of what has happened there based on what you find, almost like a crime scene. But not saying that everything in this world will have crime scene tape and murders all over the place, but each place that has had events tells a story, and all you have to do is experience the environment, look at the world around you, and everything from the people, the animals, the plants, relics, carvings in the wood, things that have been left there either by humans or by natural events will tell a story of that biome, and I want that to come out in the artwork or the artistic vision of the game. It's not just about having a style or a look. It's about telling a story, always about telling a story.
I think that's really important because the scope of the world is so large. The size of the map is huge that, even Titan Step as a county, it takes, like, if you're just walking by foot, as the crow flies. It's like an hour and a half or 2 hours to walk all the way across that county. And, that's great, but, there can't be NPCs everywhere. There can't be settlements everywhere. There can't be caves and caverns and dungeons everywhere. So a lot of times there's just open land and things like that exist between where you are and where you want to be. But one of the ways we make the world more interesting is by filling it with history. As you walk through these places, even if there's nothing there now, the idea is to make sure that the world is littered with things from ages past. And like Eddie was saying, there's going to be elements that tell a story, even things as simple as finding, a stone buried in the ground with writing on it that belongs to a language that can no longer be read and understood. That means something in the world. Everything ties into a history that we're writing. So,
And also some of those languages, being able to decipher them even could help in your playing of the game and the future events that you'd be a part of.
for sure. Anything else you want to share?
No, back to work.
All right. Well, Eddie's going to head out, but thank you very much for joining us, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk to them a little bit about the artistic style stuff. We will let him go, and then we will continue to go through the questions on design and mechanics, but thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Eddie.
you. Thank you.
He's a busy guy. All right. Back to the questions. All right, cool. My cup is empty now. What do I do with that? Oh, he left his mug here. I'm going to move this over here so that when it spills,
Can I come back for it?
when it spills, it doesn't spill in my lap, because that's inevitable. All right, cool. Next question. Let's move on.
Yeah. Just you and me.
All right. By the way, the last question was from Linnaeus, and the next question is from Linnaeus.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Since tunneling is going to be a thing, because we hit that stretch goal, and the
Indeed.
I discussed the displacement of dirt as a topic. What about snow and sand? Maybe even leaves, vines, and the trees, branches / logs in the more dense forests or jungle areas. Will there be sand traps, quicksand, and or bogs or swamps with hard terrain to traverse like thick mud?
I will answer some of that, and then I can let maybe Miguel answer some of it. One of the things that Eddie didn't get a chance to talk about, or he didn't mention, is one of the things we're trying really hard to do with this game is to make environment and design work hand in hand. And what I mean by that is that when Eddie and the other concept artists originally were talking about what the world was going to look like, and they were doing concepts of the different villages and settlements, they went through and they drew the settlement with a specific architecture style based on the resources in the area and everything, and that was great. And they put like barrels on the sides of buildings, and they put wagons and carts and things like that throughout the settlement. And it looked visually very appealing. But when we took a look at that and we started thinking about whether or not a settlement that a player created would have those same things, it became clear to us that there were not necessarily reasons for why that there would be barrels on the sides of the roads or there'd be carts and wagons and things out there. And so what we did is we actually went and started doing a kind of a circular design pass with the concept artists, environment artists, and the world building group, and that was making sure that anytime concept had an idea for what the world would look like, that the design also matched. That way, when we fast forward, a year from now, 2 years from now, however long, and the players are in there and they're making the world themselves, they're world building, they're building their own settlements, the settlements are going to look just as good as the ones that we're creating because you're encouraged to do things through the design of the game. So if we want there to be barrels on the sides of buildings and things like that, then we need to have a mechanic for why you would do that. Same with like clotheslines and anything that we view as aesthetic, we kind of want a motivating factor for that. This relates back, what I was going to say, is it relates back to our existing conversation because, if we're having logs and foliage and underbrush and all these different things that are happening naturally in the forest, we kind of want to make sure that there's a mechanic in place for those, for why they would exist, for what content and challenges they add. So at least on the topic of terrain and navigation, do you want to add?
Yeah, and I can add to what you were saying as well. But yeah, there's an idea in video games that the more realistic you get, the more like real life a game is, the more you have to delineate. Oftentimes you'll have, for example, like a stack of chairs, right, in a room, and they'll function to block off an area. They're an invisible wall, but they're chairs, and they look like real chairs, and the graphics are so realistic, it seems like a chair. So you come across this, and you think, okay, well, here's how it's going to function, and it doesn't. It functions completely different, and that throws players off, right? It breaks immersion, and it also can create frustration because we have conceptual models of things, and when they don't function to that end, it's disconcerting, right? And so that basically ties in what you were saying. But in same with terrain, right? There will be things like muddy terrain, and they will have an effect on your ability to move through them. And the goal is to have that across the board with things like snow and sand, and to have the physical nature of them, as we understand them in real life, have a mechanical implication inside of Chronicles of Elyria, because logic is important to maintain in a game, and we want to, like he was saying about the placement of objects within a town, we want there to be logic to why there would be an object within a town. We want logic to be consistent.
So the answer is underbrush and logs and things like that, potentially where it makes sense.
Right.
But definitely movement rate stuff. So mud, sand, snow, those will affect your movement. Even moving through fields, like wheat fields, potentially. We're working on new animation sets and for things to kind of make it so your character, as you're moving through those things, you have to kind of account for those things. Like, we really want players to feel like they can interact with the world around them, and it's not entirely cosmetic. And this is when we have to hand this off.
He came back
He
first.
came back. We knew that was going to happen. And I didn't spill it in my lap, so fantastic.
I think you succeeded.
Yeah.
It was pretty stealthy.
Shh, nobody, we're just going to pretend that didn't happen.
It
All right,
wasn't a lot.
next question.
Actually, we have a follow-up to that.
Excellent follow-up.
So when the terrain impacts the player mechanics, will we have audio or visual cues to tell us we are being impeded?
Yeah.
Yeah, so usually it's going to be particle effects, it'll be a change in animation, it'll be something to indicate why you're moving slower. I mean, if you're moving through mud, one of the things we're working on is new animation states for walking in mud, so your character's going to have to lift their feet up a little bit to unstick. If they're moving through a snowbank, they're going to have to kick through the snow a little bit.
There's a lot we can do with SFX too.
Yeah.
That's the kind of sound design I like to see in a game, which is, yeah.
So in general, yeah, we want you guys to know why your movement speed is affected. It's not just going to be the same walk animations. In some cases, it will. We're working on, as part of the locomotion system, some contextual stuff, so that when you're outdoor walking, you're going to walk at one speed, whereas, for example, if you're indoors around other people, or if you're inside a store or a tavern, it makes sense that you'd walk a little bit slower because you're inside a tighter space. In those cases, it's probably not going to be different animations. We'll just make them slower, or the range of motion will be a little bit less. But certainly when you're out in the wild and you're impeded by things, then it will probably use different animation states for those. But certainly something that we're looking at doing right now.
Yeah.
It is a known quantity.
Smashing. All right, next question.
She said smashing.
Smashing. Next question is from Gamia about natural resources on each biome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if travelers will be able to see external signs of mineral resources before creating a mine, such as the Rio Tinto from Spain is red because of the concentration of iron in the soil.
You guys good? Everything
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Go ahead.
Sure. In places where it makes sense, yes, because those are visual indicators that allow players to know, where certain materials are, and if they're unique or they have some sort of unique reason for occurring in the first place that might not match up with reality, then we obviously want to put some sort of indicator. But at other times, you're just going to have to use common sense and logic to sort of discern where things would be. If you're looking for metals, probably mountains. Maybe mountains might make sense. If you're looking for clay, what kind of soils have clay? I don't know. Google knows. And so
Hopefully you know too.
I know as well. But that's something that we'll ask the player to figure out, right?
Right. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like biomes, right? Like certain plants you're going to see in certain biomes and certain types of animals. And in some cases, as you walk through, you're going to see those plants and animals, and then you're going to remember, okay, this is what the type of things are that are inside of a tropical forest or something
Right.
like that. So the next time you go to look for a specific type of animal, you're going to know, I saw them in a tropical forest. So
Exactly.
same things with metals and minerals and saps and, pretty much all the natural, whether it's organic or non-organic. Like, we'll tip our hands a little bit so that you guys can learn where to find those, but you're not going to always see at every single instance a visual indicator, but that doesn't mean you can't try and find it.
True. And there's probably a logic to why things are in a certain place.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question.
Great. How gradually will biomes change? Will we be walking through snowy tundra 1 second and then suddenly appear in a temperate forest? Or will there be some sort of more gradual change?
It's going to be a gradual change. We have transition zones, which real life has as well. And so, essentially, between one biome and another, you're going to find, as you get closer to one versus the other, more qualities of the one you're entering and less qualities of the one you're leaving. For example, a mixed broadleaf deciduous forest, if you're going from an alpine forest, right, up in the mountains, and you're going down into a deciduous forest, you're going to find a transition zone where you're going to find some coniferous trees and some deciduous trees, and it's going to continue on a curve until you finally reach the other biome, and that's
I think there was a large group of questions that we saw that were asking kind of about that same thing, and I think one of the things that speaks to that is actually how we go about generating the world, generating the terrain, and generating the biomes. And so, just in an interest in helping mitigating some of these questions, generally what we do is we procedurally generate our continents, and we break them up, and we let them basically shift like tectonic plates, which is pretty awesome. And then what we do is we take latitude, and we use that to kind of create temperature bands, and then we have pseudo weather systems. I mean, it's flow and current, air current, and things like that, and we use those to identify where humidity is. And then we have a terrain map that's generated that shows us what our elevation is in different places. And so what we do is we take a combination of elevation, latitude, and humidity, and we use that to figure out where the different biomes are. And so as a result of the fact that elevation changes gradually, there are areas that are kind of low elevation and mid elevation and high elevation. And so when we populate those with the different flora and fauna, it naturally creates a transition between those two rather than being a hard cut. So it's not like we're going in and saying, all right, this group of tiles is where we're going to put a biome, and this group of tiles is going to be another. Like, it's not top-down design like that. It's bottom-up. We just let the elevation and the latitude and the humidity dictate what kind of biome it is, and as a result of that, what kind of flora and fauna exist in that region. And so it should feel really natural, and the transitions should be very organic as a result of that.
Yeah. Because they, for all sense and purpose, are organic.
For all sense of purposes, like, our biomes are defined and bounded the same way they are in our world.
Basically, yeah.
Good.
Cool. Next question.
All right. How much of an impact will weather in different biomes have on a character who is over or underdressed, and could it potentially cause permadeath?
It will have distinct and identifiable effects. If you're caught in a snowstorm and you're not wearing a jacket, your character's probably going to suffer, whether it be incapacitation or grievous wounds, which Jeremy can talk about. Permadeath? Probably not. I mean, just to assuage your concerns. You're probably not going to permadie just because you got a cold or you froze, you know. But there will be impacts. So dress appropriately is the general idea.
Yeah, I mean, the biomes are that's part of the mechanic, is making sure that you're dressed appropriately and that you're properly prepared for those. You know, and if you're inside of a biome and you're not properly prepared, either too hot or too cold, you're going to suffer fatigue from that. You're not going to have as much energy. Eventually your vitality is going to run out faster, and you're going to pass out or whatever. Worst case scenario, you will suffer grievous wounds and be forced to spirit walk. And that's, you know, he said, I'll talk to that. One of the things that we're really trying to do with this game is differentiate the different types of what you would call deaths in other games. And spirit walking has been a term that we've been using to talk about kind of the more serious form of incapacitation, when there's actually spirit loss and you have to walk the astral plane and find your way back to your body. And we've been using the term now. Actually, it was a term I had coined a long time ago and was inside of the functional spec, and we just kind of glossed over it. And so recently, as I was going back, redoing our migration to our wiki, I found that term again. It was like, oh yeah, That's right. So grievous wounds is actually what we call coup de grace. So whenever you are coup de grace, or when you would normally consider something death from extreme weather or from animals or something like that are actually evil, that want to take your life away. They want to force you to spirit walk, and then what you're doing is you're suffering grievous wounds.
Right. That said, there might be a couple fringe cases. Like if you're forced to spirit walk because of weather, and you're like 90 years old, and you don't have any spirit left, then you will probably perma-die.
Yeah.
In that case. But that's...
Yeah, it's not that the environment itself is a
Yeah.
permadeath environment, it's just that you don't have enough spirit to make it back.
Right.
Which can actually happen due to any form of grievous wounds, like really any time.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Next question. They can always tell when I'm going to ask for next question because I look this way.
The community is asking if I should sit in the chair.
Absolutely you should. Get her on camera.
Get in here, Vi.
Okay.
Now's your time.
How rude was
Spotlight.
I not to invite her to sit
Oh.
next to me?
Can I have a little room for the laptop?
Jeez. All right, well, I'm
Now,
gonna
now, come on.
I'm just
It's our
gonna-
time. Boom.
What kind of gentleman am I? I let you sit down on the floor that entire time without, like, immediately...
They were up in arms about equality,
Was that like role equality or gender equality?
gender
or-
equality.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
They went there, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the framing, but I'm pretty sure there's a laptop like right in front of my face now.
Is there? No, it's not.
No,
too
we're
bad.
good. We're
It
good.
looks fine, actually.
Okay.
It blends in with your shirt.
Nice.
That was actually intentional.
Yeah,
They
I
don't-
knew
they
that was
spent
gonna happen
2
today.
hours.
We had to match the laptop with my shirt. All right, cool.
Perfect.
Well, now I don't have to look that way anymore. So, next question.
The next question is, will there be such a thing as evolution in Chronicles of Elyria that is tied specifically to biomes?
I mean,
Not really.
no.
We talked about this before. Like every creature has genetics, and you can breed them. There is the opportunity to kind of breed for specific traits and things like that. But keep in mind, evolution is not a quick process. And even over a 10-year lifespan in this game, for the 10-year story at least, we're only talking about 500 years. That's not a long time for natural selection or any kind of evolution. Now,
Yeah.
there might be introduction of some mutation and things like that. We'll speed it up because we want to introduce new things. But yeah, I don't think, depending upon what you're thinking about for that question, I don't think you're going to get the answer you're looking for.
Right.
Right. Cool.
Next question.
Next question.
The next one is a duplicate. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to get that a little bit now because
Yeah.
I looked through there with some duplicates.
Yep. It's like, can you redirect over a stream?
Yeah. We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
That was not a yes, we can. That was yes, we're not going to talk about that. No.
Okay. From Hugin, will biomes be geographically locked, or will they naturally change over time due to climate change, erosion, pollution, deforestation, etc.?
This kind of circles back to the can biomes change question. Yes. Climate change? That's a whole
We don't
other
really
system
have
you have to develop
we don't
for.
really have pollution yet. I mean, that's a technological advancement that hasn't really happened yet. So there's not really. No, I'm gonna say at this point, no. You're not gonna see huge climate changes as a result of pollution and things like that. Deforestation, yes, we definitely know that's gonna be a thing. But beyond that, I'm gonna say no, not right now.
Not really.
But will animals adapt to changed biomes?
That's actually
that's a good question.
That is a great question, and you're gonna have to find out because animals are gonna have different behaviors, and some of them are gonna be capable of adapting, and some of them won't, and all of them probably are gonna try and adapt. What that's gonna look like might just be death, but
Theirs or yours?
exactly. That's a good question.
Yeah. What happens when animals? It's like a Natural Geographic show. Like what happens when animals adapt?
Yeah.
That's entertaining.
But absolutely, there will be an impact. So if you're gonna go ahead and destroy a biome, there will be ramifications.
I think there was a question on this at one point, but I guess this is as good a time to address it as any. So when we get there, then we'll just say we talked about that at all. But animals.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier, but no, actually we'll wait. We'll wait until we
Okay.
get to the question.
Okay.
I don't want to bury the lead on that. We'll wait till we get to the question.
Fair enough.
All right. I know you guys have touched on this just a bit, but how will the various biomes and land features affect the weather patterns, like mountains preventing rain from reaching the other side of a range or coast more prone to rainfall?
So, good question. This actually ties directly into the world generation system. We are aware of things like rain shadows. So when we populate the world with elevation, it creates high areas, which are areas of cooler temperature and lower humidity. And when you pass high humidity over top of it, it forces it to rain, so you're going to get actual rain on the top of the mountains. But then as a result of the rain dumping itself on top of the mountain, there's no humidity on the other side, so it creates what's called a rain shadow, which means that your deserts are typically, though not always, going to be on the opposite side of a large mountain as a result of the air current and this concept of rain shadows. So it definitely has an impact.
Okay, next. Will biomes be monolithic or diverse? For example, will the desert be all sand dunes, or will it be broken up with rocky formations and arid grasslands?
Diverse.
Yeah, I mean, you heard Miguel's list of the biomes earlier. I mean, there's a difference between arid deserts and semi-arid deserts and the different shrublands and steppes. And so even within what you'd consider kind of a dry climate, there's going to be different, even within that dry climate, there's multiple biomes.
Yeah. There's diversity is kind of the name of the game.
Great. From Moonlinks, we've seen quite a bit about the cooler climates. Can you give more information about the warmer climates, such as deserts, jungles, and savanna?
Sure.
Do tell.
Yeah. So that's a pretty broad question. They do exist. I read the list of biomes. I'm not actually sure what more they want outside of.
Well, tell us what's in a tropical rainforest.
Well, in a tropical rainforest, you're going to find a lot of diversity in terms of the species that are populating it, right? So inside of a tropical rainforest, you're going to find tons of flora and tons of fauna that are all varied, right? And that's similar to real life. Where you're looking to discover a new species of something, you're going to find it there. You never know what you might find in a tropical rainforest, but it's definitely worth exploring because it's going to be quite dense with variety.
That's typically true. That has a lot to do with the latitude.
Yeah.
Along the equator, basically you find the most life, especially a lot with humidity. So as you go to the tundra and the deserts, you're going to find a lot less life, but the more temperate you become or the more tropical you become, you tend to find a wider variety of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. Endemic species, the types of creatures inside of the that's right, we're talking about temperate zones specifically. I've said my piece.
All right.
There's too much to talk about.
So much.
So it's
So
like,
much.
okay, well, let me talk to you about what I think a temperate zone is, and then let's talk about what I think should be inside of a temperate zone. Let's talk about the systems that are involved in a temperate zone, specifically for each temperate zone. There's so much.
I'm pretty sure there's a Wikipedia page on temperate zones.
Yeah, I'm sure
Right.
you can look that up.
Yeah.
We did. Many
Research.
times.
For science.
Right. I love that. Video games for science.
I want to put a disclaimer though. I don't do my research on Wikipedia. I have books and stuff.
He does. No joke.
Yeah.
Like, our budget for books, my God.
It's high.
It's really high.
He's like, hey, Vi, can I have these 5 books on ecology?
They're
Yeah,
really
like
important.
if he decides to change careers and to leave video game design,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some kind of whether it's weatherman, like a meteorologist or ecologist,
Yeah.
there's a calling there for you.
Yeah.
I think there is.
Ecology's fascinating.
It
yeah,
really
maybe
is.
we should send you to Mars to terraform.
But then we wouldn't have a designer.
Yeah. Maybe we should all go to Mars.
We're gonna divide.
Sorry guys, we're out. We're gonna head to Mars. All
Uh,
right, next
Okay.
question.
Next question is from Imshada again.
Cool.
Are there any planned interactions between a character's home biome and other core game mechanics? For example, a character born in the desert might be more resilient against dehydration, or a character born in a dense forest might have a small bonus to survival and hunting related skills. If so, what sorts of advantages might we end up seeing?
So there are two parts to that. During character creation, there are actually two components to that. There is racial bonuses, or what we call tribal bonuses, or tribal traits, and then there's regional traits. And the idea is that when you are creating your character and you join a family that's a specific tribe, that tribe over periods of however many years will have adapted to their environment. So there are passive bonuses that you get as being a part of that, whether or not it's being able to survive better in a cooler climate or a hotter climate or something like that. Your character, that particular tribe, has their own adaptations. At the same time, though, when you move or relocate to a new biome, after a period of time, you're going to start to adapt, just like us. We acclimate to our environment. So there are certain skills that you might be able to learn faster in certain biomes than you could in other biomes. Whether
Depending
it's
on where you're from.
yeah, depending on where you're spending your time, actually.
Right.
And so what that means then is when you are actively playing and you move from one biome to another, you're going to be able to learn certain skills that are appropriate for that biome. But likewise, when you create your character and you join a family, it's assumed that over the lifetime of your childhood, you will have picked up some of those skills. And so you have not only tribal bonuses, but also regional bonuses, which are just based on where your family is from. And it has nothing to do with what kind of tribe you're a part of. It really just has to do with where your family grew up, or where you grew up as a part of that family.
Right.
Smashing. What did you do?
I said smashing earlier,
All right.
and so
Excellent.
Nigel Thornberry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nigel Thornberry.
Yeah, I dig it.
Good times.
My
All right.
nose itches. Next question.
Yeah. The next one was duplicate.
All right.
Okay. Will different biomes have different substitutes for different basic stuff? For example, cloth. Like tropic regions might have cotton, temperate would have flax, and cold would rely more on pelts, etc.
Yes, it's just a matter of materials. Some materials will be available in some biomes, some will be available in others. And I mean, that's part of why an economy would exist in the first place, a global economy. You need to trade, your cotton for my wheat or something like that.
That's actually how we do our food chain.
Right.
Well, not even just the food chain, but how we build our biomes. Whenever we're starting to build out a biome, one of the things we take a look at are what kind of things do we need here? We need primary producers and consumers. Right. We need things that exist so that other things have a food source, including players. Like, let's introduce a new creature so that players have a food source. Let's introduce a new creature so that players have a source of clothing. Let's
Right.
introduce a new type of tree so that they have a way to create rubbers or plastics or, whatever it is we need. So what drives the things that exist in a biome oftentimes are creating the different substitutes for those.
Right. They need to have a place, right? Everything has a place. It serves some sort of purpose.
It is not arbitrary.
It's not arbitrary, right?
Next question.
Cool. And I know that this is not fully
Uh-oh.
designed yet, and Salik asked this question
Uh-huh.
and is not expecting a full detailed answer.
Uh-oh.
What's that?
Okay.
We're experiencing technical difficulties? We have to cut for the next 30 seconds?
All right,
Great.
go ahead.
Make it happen.
Is the ocean planned to be a fully functioning biome at some point?
That's an easy one,
I
actually.
mean,
Yeah.
we'd very much like it to.
Yeah.
But that's like a whole other game. That's
Yeah.
basically making Kronk's Elyria underwater at that point, because the ocean's
Oceans
huge.
of Elyria.
The Oceans of Elyria.
That'd be
Ooh.
cool. The Oceans of Elyria. TM, it's trademarked already.
Yeah.
We already
That
trademarked
website
it. We gotta
exists.
start-
That website existed 10 seconds ago.
Our lawyers actually
Uh,
watch our streams too.
So, I mean, one of the things that's true is that the above ground environment is huge. There's a lot of time spent developing assets, resources, balancing, and things like that. The underworld is as large, if not larger, than the above ground world. Just because we don't spend a lot of time there doesn't mean that there's not an entirely new geography and biome underneath the water with all the different food chains and things like that. And so at this point our focus is entirely on the above ground, to the point where at this point we don't have subsurface swimming. We only have surface swimming. I know that's going to disappoint some people, but we got to focus our resources on one area at a time. But we would like to, at some point, after the players research sailing and start to get out into the oceans a little bit more, that we do develop those biomes. It's going to require some new procedural world generation for the underwater areas, and we do have to develop new food chains. But yeah, I think ultimately we do want to have an underwater biome as well.
Absolutely.
Too many cool things there.
It's going to be so cool. And the fun that we can have with creatures, right?
I
Ocean
hear
creatures.
they're cracking.
Oh, they're crack-a-lackin'. There's a lot. It'll be cool.
All right, cool. Next question.
All right. This is from Adam Burfoot again.
All right.
So will the biomes be moderately balanced across geographical locations, or is someone born or selecting their city, county, duchy, etc. in the desert or in an ice sheet biome with no other choice, likely screwed economically?
Yes and no. Biomes are defined by scarcity. Like the tundra and the desert are in fact defined by their scarcity. So if you're planning to build an economy there off of food sources, you're probably going to be at a disadvantage. That's our world. That's the world that we live in. That's the world of Elyria. That being said, we will probably balance that with the availability of more interesting and unique resources.
Right.
Whether or not it's things like salt flats or metals or other things. they will be able to participate in the global economy, but they might have to work more at finding what value they add to the world.
Right, and it's not necessarily always a one-to-one equation of I chose this biome, let's start affecting the economy, right? There are other reasons to choose a biome. There's other reasons to choose a specific tribe other than economy. And even if your ultimate goal is economy, there can still be ways in which you can leverage your let's say your tribe's unique racial or regional bonuses in a way that would eventually benefit you economically, right? You know?
Yep. Traveling merchant type things and
Yeah.
stuff like that as well.
Or someone who's resistant, like the Yoru, right?
Yep.
Resistant to cold, collecting some.
They have no information about the Yoru yet.
Yeah, but we talked about it. Yeah,
I don't think so.
we've at least posted about it. We posted a photo of them.
No, we haven't.
Ah, well. Then.
All right, well.
The end.
The Yoru are resistant to cold.
No,
I mean, they got that part.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did.
Ah.
Well, we talked briefly about them being in the tundra, so I think that's fair.
Okay, as long as we've talked about it.
Yeah.
I didn't pop that.
No.
I didn't spoil
So
that.
I'll be careful of what you say then.
Yeah, I realized.
Yeah.
PG-13.
Well, one
Yeah.
of our next Q&As should be on tribes.
No,
Yeah.
they get nothing.
No, I mean we'll definitely talk more about it.
Yeah.
And the Yoru is the one that we have, I think, most locked in at this point. The other
Yeah.
ones are coming along, but I think the Yoru is the most, and it's also in some ways the most, not the most interesting, but it's definitely a very interesting one.
Yes.
And people are going to be surprised. I think.
They're all interesting though.
I think they're the most interesting right now.
Fair
But
enough.
that's Go ahead.
Cool.
They're so interesting. You guys are missing out.
Oh.
That's
I
just
gotta see what the
I know.
chat is on that.
That's just mean.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
Next question.
Noxidius would like to know which biome is best suited toward the growth of watermelons.
Yeah. See this, and I knew this question was next. I felt it. And this is
I have
why.
no idea.
This is why we can't tell you everything, right? Because people ask questions like,
They're min-maxing, aren't they?
yeah. So I would say probably a temperate biome with the right kind of soil.
Somewhere along the
Yeah.
temperate band.
Yeah. I would probably
That's
say.
fair. Yeah.
In all honesty.
That's fair.
Right.
I got to show off my cup too.
Yeah,
Again,
cup's very
I guess
nice.
everybody's
He
cup
was
is-
the one who sent it to you, I believe.
you even talked
makes sense.
about it at the top of the hour.
I did. Well, I mean, I love it when people send us stuff. That's really cool.
I do too.
We
Please
also
keep doing it.
also got, and for those who haven't followed along, there you go. Yes.
And
They're-
wait.
They're taking multiple shots of it
May
right in front of my
melon
face.
be with you.
May the
Did you
melon
see
be,
that?
may melon be with you.
Yeah.
It is on Twitter. We took a picture.
Yeah, we did take a picture
And
of it.
posted it on Twitter if you want to see it.
But while we're talking about that, we did have somebody who sent us candy and foods as well. They have a design experience they'd like to make as part of the confectioner or the brewmaster one, and they felt like the best way to convey to us what type of candy they wanted to make was to just send it to us.
Yeah.
I want to relay that is a brilliant idea, and any of you else who wish to make foods, candies, alcohols, really anything to consume, we're
Poisons.
more than happy. Not poisons. If you're looking to create a poison, we don't need to sample that. My camera crew encouraging like homicide. It's fantastic. All right.
Keep in mind, when we say you want to make things, we mean in-game. And then send us, but don't just send us homemade alcohol or
That's right. Definitely don't kill us.
Or whatnot.
Store-bought stuff though is
Yeah.
good. Next question.
Great. From Erisilb, will each biome have a specific selection of creatures and animals, or will they share some of them, and on average, how many unique animals will there be for each biome?
So there's no number for that. But some creatures will be shared amongst biomes. Some will be endemic, which means they don't exist within that biome. And the variety or ratio is also something we haven't, there's no answer for that. It's going to depend. There are some areas that have a high ratio of endemic versus non-endemic creatures, right? And then there are some that aren't. There are some areas that don't have that, and we're just gonna have to find out.
Of course, you pronounced it right.
I'm very happy when I pronounce somebody's name correctly.
Erisil. I have pronounced it right too. Anyways, moonshine for the team. My God, they're gonna send us Everclear.
Moonshine,
We will
flavored
get-
Everclear.
Yeah,
We will
that
be so productive.
Christmas party coming up. So in case you were
We
curious,
actually were gonna have one, but now we are.
now we are. You send us Everclear. Moonshine. We'll definitely have a Christmas party. All right, next question.
From Sabicat.
Cool.
Sabacat. Hey,
Sabicat.
on
Hey there,
time.
Savvy Cat.
Yeah. Can the flora of a biome be gradually changed through a concerted effort? For instance, planting of a specific tree or plant over a large area that may not be indigenous.
So there were two sides to this question
Yeah.
that we had talked about.
Yeah, there were.
Which side do you want?
I was gonna talk about. I wasn't gonna talk about the invasive side.
All right,
So
I'll
you-
talk about the invasive side then. So the answer to the question, I'll let Miguel answer the main part of that, but the other part is that we don't at this point have invasive species. It's not a concept that we have. So if you plant things, it doesn't require resources from the environment around it to the point where it would kill off things that are there and can't exist. We thought about that. It was a mechanic that we wanted, but the amount of data and memory required to track every single plant in the world and figure out like how it's affecting the plants around it, like even when a world is as broad and dynamic and immersive as what we were trying to create, there's too much data associated with that.
I appreciate Sabakat's question because I'm aware that there's so much depth to the real world's system, if you will, for plants, and like the way that plants intermingle and habitate. You know, plants. There's a lot of factors and variables that go into why one plant can be in one place versus another, or why one plant can exist with another, or sometimes only one plant can exist in one area and the others can't. And there's so many variables so that we'd have to build a really, really in-depth system to track all of it. Like you were saying, we can't do it technically, but also design-wise. It'd be a ton of work for something that probably wouldn't be noticed all that much. It's like in the background, plants are having their own war, but you can't ever see it because we don't show it.
Literally watching watching the grass grow.
If you pay attention, maybe there'll be a change. And it's like we spent what 6? How long do you think you could design that system? That's my question. And then my answer is probably a little bit shorter than that, but it'd take a while.
Yeah, and with very little value added.
Yeah. So
Next question.
Biome.
Namaste.
From DeConti. Biomes tend to be focused on surface flora and fauna, but will there be underground biomes in cave systems?
with caves, because we met that goal, and we're gonna have tunnels and caves. They're going to have, well, I wouldn't call them a biome of their own. I would say it would have a microbiome, a microclimate. It'll be unique to the above ground. You know, you're not gonna dig underneath a deciduous forest and find another deciduous forest. You're gonna find something interesting, something unique. I promise you that.
Yep.
Great. From Hunter Watt, in desert biomes or tundra biomes or any place that this would really be effective, would building below ground be possible?
I think from a technical, I think we've discussed this.
Yeah.
From a technical side, it's
Soil
just-
type. Soil type dictates whether or not you can
Yeah.
dig down. That has to do whether or not you're just digging or trying to build tunnels and caves. There are some areas like the semi-arid deserts where you can the ground is rocky and hard and you can like create caverns and caves and stuff like that. But if you're in like a full arid desert like dunes of the Sahara, like
Right.
you can't tunnel there. Like
Correct.
it's just not gonna work.
Yeah. Plus, the way the soil works, you build a hole or like you build a tunnel, it just collapses because there's no structural
There's no
integrity.
structure.
Yeah.
And that's true too of areas that are island areas and things like that. Areas that are low at sea level and the water tables are very high.
Right.
Because you're gonna dig down and very quickly hit water. So
Right.
that's not gonna allow you to go very deep.
Yeah.
Can you tunnel completely through a mountain?
Like from one end to the other. That's just creating a.
It's a tunnel.
It's a tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because I mean.
Mines, I mean, or
Right.
I mean, if we get to the point of doing technology for like trains and stuff
yeah,
like that.
That's what I was thinking too.
Steam.
But that's pretty far off.
I mean,
If ever.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I'm not at all excited about a steampunk world.
That'd be super cool. But that's not the plan. Just put that out
Yeah.
there.
Next question. I don't know.
Have you played Dishonored? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, come on.
All right. From House Honeybrew. As someone interested in raising bees for their sweet, delicious honey used in the crafting of fine mead,
They sold that very well.
Yeah.
will biomes impact the quality, quantity, or type of honey gathered by bees?
This is when we're like, joke's on you, all honey is bitter. or something.
Oh, ouch.
But I mean, you can answer this one.
At least the quality, or as to quality, I don't know. At this point, we don't have different species of bees. We
Yeah.
just have bees. So it would certainly be certain biomes would make it easier for you to do that because they're going to be more. There's going to be more of them. There are a higher quantity of hives and stuff like that.
Well,
But
it's also a matter of how honey, how you know, the way that bees collect pollen, right? So the amount of flowers that you can pollinate within an area will also have some impact because it
right.
basically is constrained by whatever constraints real world bees suffer in terms of, you know, availability of the right types of plants and whatnot. Whatever elements go into building honey.
The tundra is going to suck. Don't go to
It's
the
not
tundra.
a great place.
Yeah, don't
There's
build
basically nothing.
no beehives there.
Yeah. Plus they can't survive there.
It's too cold.
Too cold.
Next question.
I think I know the answer to this, but is there any correlation between biomes and available for professions?
Yes.
For sure.
In the sense that professions are and actually
Don't. This is the long list.
no, but
Is that the item list?
I created
Okay.
a dependency list.
Oh, okay.
See, look at this.
My God.
yeah.
Well, just
You
maybe
should actually hold on.
Things-
Can we show that?
Yeah,
Picture
I
of
mean-
Chris's flora economy. Yeah, I think you can probably show that.
Things absolutely tie in.
I don't know if you
There,
might
it's
be able
a,
to
it's a
zoom
web,
in.
right?
You can zoom in.
How
We'll at least
things-
get it on the offline version.
this
of
isn't-
it.
this
What
isn't-
does it look like on screen? You're not gonna be able to see it. 'Cause
This
it's
isn't
not-
necessarily
maybe.
It hasn't come
an
up yet.
official map, but it kind of gives the idea. Can I take it down now?
Yeah.
Fantastic. An idea of
Yeah,
how
you can see all the dots. You can see
how
interconnectivity.
how things might interconnect, and an occupation will arise for several reasons, but for the flora, for the fauna, for the environment, which dictates the resources, right? So if you have a biome that is heavy in one type of resources, like trees, you're going to need someone to cut down those trees because it ties into so many other things like economy. And so you're going to have a specific occupation arise in order to take advantage of the resources. Like
Yeah.
we fill the needs that are created.
That's why we say it's a game of infinite metas because we're not defining
Right.
individual occupations or roles. We're giving you a cultural, an environmental and cultural experience, and the occupations and things that arise as a result of that is really predicated on the environment. Like everything, so much ties into the biome.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we spent so much time on defining these. Is the biomes, the tribes, the cultures, the religions. All of these are so closely integrated that you can't create them in a vacuum, and we need to make sure that there's the correct balance. But ultimately, all of those things tie into how you're going to spend your time in game, like what your occupation is. Are all related to those things.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question.
Will there be any biomes that are total death traps?
Probably not a high-level biome, but there might be areas within a biome, microbiomes, microclimates, or areas and zones that might not even quantify as a biome
Like the
that
center
will
of
be
a
death
volcano?
traps. The center of a volcano, that's a great example. You will die. Don't do it. We'll probably just permadeath you if you jump into a volcano. So, if you're looking to sacrifice people, I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
Or rings. If you
Yeah.
got any spare rings lying around.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talked about before is just environments, this concept of localized regions that aren't entire biomes, and so there are going to be some of those.
Yep. Next question.
Will wetlands be properly wet?
Yes.
Yes. Mangroves even.
Mangroves.
Cool.
Swamps, marshes.
Not like foot high, but like
Yeah.
waist high, like wade through, like you have to swim around or take a small boat.
Yeah.
Will there be a common mount animal other than a horse for specific biomes?
Yes. For some biomes, absolutely. You're not going to find horses everywhere. And you're going to find some creatures that are more suited to navigate through a certain environment,
That's true. Think about the camel.
Right.
Alright, for Malvorn, in the kingdoms of Elyria.
Let's hear the question.
I think
Let's hear the question
Okay.
first.
What sort of resources can we see? For example, if a county has a river in it, do we get to know what fish species are in it?
if you fish enough.
Yeah, Kingdoms of Elyria is probably not going to be at that level of detail.
Good to know. Alright. How freely can pledged kings choose their starting kingdom's biomes?
It actually goes the other direction.
Not at all.
Not at all. So you don't get to go, I'm going to make a kingdom and I choose this to be a tundra biome. That's the opposite of the way the world works. So what happens is that we have the continent that's generated, and then in that continent there are different high-level biomes and groups of biomes, like all the different dry areas like deserts and steppes and semi-arid and arid deserts. And then kingdom boundaries are going to kind of lie along those, and they're not all the same size. They're not all rectangular. They're different shapes and sizes. And then when you do settlement selection and domain selection, you get to look at the map and go, here's one kingdom. It exists inside the desert region, and there are lots of desert duchies and things like that in it. And you go, I want that one. And it, obviously during settlement selection, it gets done in influence order. So the people who have higher influence as a result of either store purchases or community development, which we are working on getting those to you out at some point, the people that have the higher influence get to the opportunity to pick first. And so people come along and say, on this server, I want on this continent to have the forest, the kingdom. Then that's that one's taken, and then the next in line is limited to either the deserts or the tundras or the steppes or savannas or so many.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Great. Well, some biomes come with climatic or biological hazard. Examples. The southern Nepal border jungle is heavy with malaria to the point that it prevented invasions from that road for centuries. And blizzard and sandstorms are biome-specific or limited climatic hazards that occur.
Right. I mean, okay.
Go ahead.
We can't talk to diseases. I wouldn't count on that, but some areas will have things like snowstorms or sandstorms that will be localized to those areas because they're the only areas that support that kind of weather. I mean, pretty straightforward, pretty logical.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, some areas will have certain rather dramatic weather,
Yes.
like Kabatic winds.
As kind of a follow-up, but from a completely different question.
Okay.
Yes.
So, like, if a lot of snow landed on a flat roof, would the flat roof collapse?
How much
Because-
snow are we talking? I've got a number
A lot.
for this.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
So we've
Like a
said
lot.
that the biomes directly tie into your ability to build under certain structures. That is true. How much snow pileup will cause a building to collapse depends on probably the resources used and not necessarily the individual weight. So I don't know whether or not at this point it doesn't work that way, but it's not going to be like you have a heavy snow year and suddenly all the houses collapse. It would be you're building buildings out of structures that aren't structurally sound for having heavy snow buildup on it. Like you're building your house in the middle of the tundra out of
Thatch
like
roof.
yeah, you're building a thatch roof, or you're building it out of rice paddy, like rice
Yeah.
paper walls and stuff like that. In which case, it's probably going to collapse the first time it gets snowed on.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be yeah.
Rain, even.
I mean, it's melting.
Yeah.
Anyways, that actually wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
It rains a lot where there are rice balls, but
I mean, I wasn't
I know.
literally. Let that show on record.
Yeah.
Next question.
This is a follow-up to the king selecting biome, biome
question.
selecting king kind
Excellent.
of thing. For merged accounts,
Yes.
will influence be combined?
For merged accounts, influence is combined. But when you merge your accounts, it becomes one account, and everything in one account gets moved over to the other. So there's no like partial selecting of things. It's literally only merged accounts assume that it's the same person who's owned two accounts, and they become one account.
Yeah.
So influence will move across. Forum posts and things like that will not. So if you've been using two separate accounts and plan to merge them together, one account is going to die. So this was not intended to let friends be like, hey, let's merge our account and then I'll give you my lower level duchy back and things like that. Like it's the merging of accounts was specifically added because we didn't have support for in our existing store allowing people to own more than one domain of a specific type. And so we were encouraging people to create a new account just solely for the purpose of purchasing that other domain so that they could merge them together. So it will, in this case, combine the influence, but it will eliminate everything else.
Great.
Next question.
What is the most exotic biome that will be in Elyria?
Ah, yes.
I think we had an answer prepared for this one.
We did, which is no answer. You're gonna have to go and find out yourself, but we promised. It's gonna be it's gonna be,
It's gonna be interesting.
they're gonna be interesting, yeah. But
We
you
want
have
to
find that out.
reward the explorers.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting biomes exist, or microbiomes,
Microbiomes.
but you're gonna have to find
microclimates.
them.
Yeah.
Not the answer you're looking for, but Sorry, too bad.
But it's the right answer.
It is the right answer.
You don't want to have everything given to you. You want to earn some stuff. You want to find it.
Or we want them to.
You want them to what?
Earn it.
Right.
Yeah.
Brian F. asks, will there be biomes that are likely not found on Earth?
Jeremy.
Again,
Yeah. You have to find out, I guess.
Chronicles of Elyria, we have always said, is kind of a low, mid-ish fantasy world.
Right.
As the story progresses, that may not always be true, and there might be other stuff at some point that is not like it is in our world.
Right.
Just gonna have to go find it. Next.
GBK asks, how are you planning to make the transition between biomes look natural? I'm asking since I've seen some very unnatural looking biome transitions in other MMOs.
I think we can skip that one. I
Okay.
think we covered that. It's going to naturally change.
It's gonna naturally
It's going to naturally change.
You could go into the algorithms and stuff if you really wanted.
I don't think that would excite them.
Nah.
I'm sure we'll have a design journal on that at some point.
Yeah.
Because it's super cool.
It is super cool.
Okay. In August,
Yes.
in the A World Being Built post, we said we had identified 18 biomes which ranged in humidity, temperature based on latitude and elevation. Later in that same post, we said that some biomes might be consolidated if they did not provide a meaningfully unique environment for players. Now that we've begun production, will terrain elevation still play a factor in biome placement and distribution, or is terrain elevation limited in such a way that it would not impact biome placement and distribution in a meaningful way?
Elevation is
we
still
already
a
answered that.
elevation is definitely still considered. We actually increased the number of biomes
Yeah.
so that we could subdivide the flora and fauna that exists in certain areas even further. And I think actually the ones that we subdivided were specifically for elevation. I think it was like
Yeah,
the
there was
alpine
a-
forest and
Different.
yes, it's still there.
Is the world round, and is there a North and South Pole biome?
Find out. That's my answer. You have to explore, sail into the oceans vast, and find out if the world is round or not.
Let us
Whoa.
know.
Let us know what you find.
Christopher Columbus. That could be you.
That could be you.
Or Christina Columbus.
Or whoever else. Like,
Yeah.
pick a famous explorer that never came back. Could be you too.
Is there a super dense forest biome, and if so, can you build housing in the trees?
There are super dense forest biomes. Can
Yeah.
you build house in the trees? We'd like to.
Yeah, well, it's one of the ones that we're looking at. We've long really loved the idea of being able to take the very large in diameter trees and build housing in it.
Yeah.
Mechanically, it's not that hard. We haven't actually got to building that biome yet, but we're like fairly certain we want to make sure that gets in.
I love tree houses.
Tree houses would be awesome. We're building a world that allows you to do everything you wanted to do in an MMO. How many of you didn't want to build
With
a
some
tree house?
constraints.
What?
Some
With some
constraints.
constraints, yeah. How many don't have, like, I don't know, should we take a vote? Just be like, I don't know, what do you guys think? Should we build a tree house? Yeah, we're trying to.
We're-
That's in the plan.
It's in the goal, but don't necessarily expect it at launch, is what we're saying, I think.
I
Or
don't know.
like alpha.
Maybe. We'll see, yeah. We've got a lot of biomes to make.
Yeah.
Follow up.
Yeah.
In the case of very large diameter trees, could you make stuff inside of the trees?
Like a carved out tree.
Yeah, similar. Same thing. Like, that's specifically the area we're thinking about, is being able to build walkways, platforms, and tunnel and hollow out large diameter trees so that you could build housing at high elevation above the trees. Tree houses. Build tree houses.
Tree houses.
I'm not going to use the. There's going to be no Disney references here at all. But just imagine
I
little
was thinking-
people living inside of tree houses. We'll go with that.
Alright. Will biomes prevent or limit some activities, and will activities impact biomes? Examples. Will farming be possible in a desert? Will banana farming be possible in tundra? And will overlumbering turn taiga into tundra or savanna into desert?
So I think we have answered this.
The
but-
answer is no. You can't plant biome. Like, bananas
So-
don't grow in the tundra.
So the answer is yes, in that biomes do constrain what you can
Right.
do. Like, you are limited in what you can do by the environment.
Yes.
I like to think of there's a hidden player that you fight. There's PvP, right? Player versus player. But then there's PvE. Player versus everyone? No. Player versus Elyria.
I think it's just player versus environment. I think that's what PvE is.
Yeah?
And that's still true.
Well, I changed it to Elyria.
Okay.
Elyria is gonna try and kill you.
That means we're going to try and kill them.
Correct.
Which is not wrong.
Survival! Good. This is actually good for the next question, because will different biomes have different biome requirements? For example, in a desert region, will you require more water for survival than if you lived in a mountain region?
You will require the same amount of water for survival. You're just not going to find any.
Yeah. It goes into problem spaces. Biomes are problem spaces. You know, what makes one biome an interesting play experience versus another is potentially what resources you can gather and how you go about gathering those resources. You know, challenges arise from the environment.
The underlying principle here is that biomes are different.
Yeah.
They provide each their own challenges. The economy and ecology is diverse across all of them, and people who are looking for a unilateral play experience, no matter which biome they're in, are going to be disappointed. Like, you do have to adopt specific play styles for different biomes.
Correct.
Because it's awesome that way.
It is awesome that way.
At any given time, you can just uproot and move to a different biome, and your entire play experience changes.
Exactly. Variety.
All right. The time is now 5:40.
Yep.
So even with starting 20 minutes late, we're at about the hour of actual question answering
Yep.
at this point. So we'll do one last question.
Yeah.
Or do you want to
Tell what I was talking about before.
talk about what
All right.
you
So the thing I was talking about before is, I think there was a question about this, but we didn't actually get to it. Or I didn't hear it, so I'll just go ahead and explain it. One of the things that's super important for us is the balance of the ecology. We want to create a world that feels realistic, and we want the biomes to behave like they would in our world for the biomes that map to our world, and like they would in Elyria for the biomes that don't necessarily map to our world. And one of the ways that we do that is by making sure that there is equilibrium. And so one of the things that I'm working on, and Miguel and I have been talking about for a while, is basically going ahead and populating our biomes. We already know the flora and fauna that exists in those, and with each introduction of a new creature, putting them into effectively a simulation, and then letting the simulation play, and seeing what happens. As it plays, we can control things like reproduction rate, gestation period, how aggressive the creatures are, what their territory sizes are. There's all kinds of things that we can play with. But ultimately what we want to do is in the absence of players, we want the biomes to maintain equilibrium. And so we could let the server go, and within some variation, if we were to come back, a day or from now, or 2 days, or even a week from now, the biome is effectively inside of a balanced state. Now, obviously, when people come along, we change that. We naturally disrupt the equilibrium. And that's part of the story inside of Elyria, is as players get into the world and they start disrupting the equilibrium, things that were a food source for other things are now going to no longer have a food source. And so they're going to have to look for a new food source. And whether that's deforestation or taking out the primary producers, there is a balance to this all. And that's going to lead to, very quickly, the pendulum swing where the players are going to go one direction because they do something in the environment, and that forces them to have to make adjustments the other direction. And it's going to be one of the challenges, I think, of any biome, and really Elyria in general, is going to be finding that equilibrium again.
Right. What story are you going to write, essentially, for that world?
Yeah. And every server, as a result of that, is going to be different. Every village is going to be different. Every county is going to be different. I mean, what the players choose to do when they come into the world and how they disrupt that equilibrium is going to dictate at least some degree of their survivability. Survivability. There's a word for that. Survivability.
Survivability.
All right. That's all I got. I didn't have to invent it.
Cool.
It's for once, it was already there. Anyways. All right. Any other comments? Any other questions, concerns? You guys feel like you got your questions answered? What do they sound? They're doing speech to text.
No, they seem pretty settled.
All right, cool.
For the most part.
All
I mean,
right.
there's a million more questions that we could always answer, but we actually do have to build the game at some point and not just talk about it.
Yep.
Although it's so fun to talk about it.
It is.
Pretty tops.
We do plan to do these Q&As more often. We talked about that. I don't know, do we have a next topic yet? Have we figured that out? Not yet?
I would choose tribes. Personally.
Tribes. Why don't you guys let us know? Comments, remarks, let us know. Same thing. This will eventually go on YouTube. So let us know what you guys want to know Q&A about next, and we'll see if we can dive into that. We can't guarantee because, as you guys know, we design things in a very specific order, and as you saw from Miguel's chart, there's a lot of interdependencies. So we can't actually reveal stuff until it's ready, but at least we'll know what you guys are interested in hearing about next, and we'll try and move in that direction if we can. Taxes?
Who
Tribes.
said taxes?
Wow, tribes, taxes, tribes.
No taxes.
Elyria the RPG, vote please. They're giving people's names now. The tribes. I think people want to hear about tribes. They definitely want to hear about tribes. Land selection.
You want to hear about tribes, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I got some stuff on tribes.
Yeah, we do. I surprised we actually didn't let more of the Elyria go because
No, shh.
I'm not going
That's
to.
what entices them.
Next Q&A.
Yeah, sorry, Honey Brew. Nobody else wants to hear about taxes.
Surprise.
I'm amazed that anybody was like taxes. Death and taxes. I don't know. Otter bears.
Hey.
Oh, otter bears is one of those mounts, by the way.
Yeah.
That's one of those like people asked about like region-specific mounts.
Right.
Otter bears are one of them.
Otter bears are for sure one of them.
Cool.
Wow. Yeah. No, we're not going to talk about that.
Miguel's girlfriend.
Miguel's girlfriend. Wow.
Ah. Interesting.
Cooking. I like cooking. The
Uh,
tribes in Eddie. You want to hear about tribes in Eddie? You can let us know what you want to know about the tribes in Eddie. I don't see the relationship between those two, but I mean we're happy to pair them, I guess.
I mean, you'll find out what the relationship between them
They
is.
just wanna
after
know-
Oh, actually,
he's-
yo.
after he's done the concept art and you see it.
Right.
Actually, really what they want is
He
for
did.
him to come back in here and flex.
Okay, well,
Wow.
I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
Also, alternatively, for you two to hug.
Us two?
Us two?
No, you and Eddie. Miguel
Oh.
and Eddie. They thought that Eddie looked like he had
You two.
really nice, big, strong arms and that he would be a great hugger.
So then
Wow.
why do I come into this?
I guess they wanted you
Why
to be
do
the
I need to be
you
the
Be
huggy?
the huggy?
Because you're the pretty one.
Okay, well,
Wow, I'm not the strong one or the pretty one. Well, I have a word for you guys, but I'm not going to share that word. Whatever. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah.
We don't think I'll have any. We don't have.
it was a great time. And we hope to
Good
see
talk.
you there next time as well, where we'll have lots of interesting things to tell you. And probably some banter. I'd say a good chance.
Good chance there'll be
Good chance
banter.
of
Good chance.
banter.
We'll probably bring Jason back in for the next one. I know we had talked about bringing him back as well.
Yeah.
Probably, well, if it's tribes, you'll definitely be on the next one as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe they're tired of seeing me since I'm neither the attractive one or the huggable one. Maybe I'll just let you and Jason do the
I
next
want
one.
you here.
All right.
They like you.
You're the smart one.
Thanks,
You're the
Brian.
smart one. You're the smart one.
See, I'm huggable. I deserve hugs too.
Yeah. No,
He
it's all
touched
good.
you. I wouldn't call it a hug.
Why
I
don't
mean,
we
it
not
felt-
go into
It
details?
felt warm.
Huh?
It felt warm. He touched me here, okay? I'm just letting you know. It was right here.
Oh.
Anyways.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. The video will be available on Twitch, so you can go ahead and look it over again later. Feel free to share it with other people who might have questions about the biomes and related topics. And we'll plan to do another one of these as soon as we can. Probably, are we gonna do you think, no more, not in December.
No,
Not December. We'll see you. We'll see you again in
at the
January.
earliest.
Yeah, it'll be January.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving for those in the U.S. that had their Thanksgiving back in November, and
Yeah.
other holidays. Whatever your holiday may be, enjoy it.
Tweet us your gifts.
What you get for your gifts?
No, gifts.
Oh, gifts. Oh, yeah. If you took gifts of this video for whatever reason, please do share them with us. And
always
don't
fun.
forget, for those who are watching Elyria on Earth, if you have pictures for the Elyria on Earth contest, we're still taking submissions until January 15th.
January 15th.
January
and
15th.
The winners will be announced on January 18th. And the grand prize is tickets to PAX East and also some store credit, which is pretty much everybody could use store credit.
Yeah, store credit.
So take a look on the last couple updates for information.
What is that?
What's what?
Elyria on Earth.
Elyria on Earth is our... We'll inform you
This
after
is not
the
the
show.
time to answer these questions.
This is the time to answer these questions. What do
They
you
know.
mean?
Okay, fine. Elyria on Earth is our image competition we're running right now for people to submit photos to Twitter. So hashtag Elyria on Earth. And those images can be drawings, they can be photos, or anything. But the underlying topic here is they should be your interpretation of Elyria on Earth. So we've got people who have done their own sketches of them and what they'd look like in Elyria. We've had people take photos of our creatures and put them over top of photos. We've even had people just submit like photographs of real life places on Earth that they felt like effectively depict what they thought an Illyrian biome would look like. So all of them are available. Whatever you think Elyria on Earth would look like, then please let us know.
It's been confirmed that the melanism mug is an entry. So
It isn't okay. Excellent.
it's
I
an
like
entry.
that.
Well, technically, this is probably one of the best candidates, and because it is actually Elyria on Earth.
On
'cause
Up your
we-
game, guys.
Yeah,
Hold on.
seriously.
Up your game.
Hold on. You're saying that Elyria has melanism?
I mean, I didn't create it. But,
I'm not saying it either quite yet.
Okay, well, they said it, so
I'm not saying nothing.
I mean,
But they
really,
don't get it
Elyria can be almost anything, right? Because they can make whatever they want.
Yeah.
So,
True.
yeah, use your creativity, but let us know what Elyria on Earth would look like. Again, you go ahead and tweet it to at Soulbound Studio, no S, just Soulbound Studio, and make sure you put in the hashtag Elyria on Earth so we know to look for it as we judge the competition. Cool. Anything else?
Now you know.
Now you know.
Awesome.
I feel like there should be some like climactic finish, but I don't know what that should be.
High five.
High five.
Triple high five.
Triple high five. There we go. That was horrible. All right. Next
Give
time.
that.
Next time. All right. Give it.